This is Dave from ultramegadeathray.com. I'm here with Quan on the left.
What's up?
And I got Ross here on the right side.
How's it going?
So we're here to discuss many topics like dealing with geek media. So it's going to be games, movies, TV shows, whatnot. Everything across the board, like anything that's like recent. So to start off, of course, is like the big thing with the Xbox 180. With the Xbox One, like reversing like their DRM policies and all that. So there's kind of like the question on whether or not it's even like it was even like a good thing in the end, because people are now questioning on as far as like now we're able to like have like used games and everything, and like we're able to like trade our games just like how we normally can now. But Microsoft is kind of making the argument that we're almost like fighting the future in a sense, like where we're not going to be able to do things like how we can on Steam, like being able to like gift games online or allow ourselves to like bring our online games library with us, like no matter where we go. What do you guys feel that is like is this like a good trade-off? Like is this something that was worth it, like with the internet outrage and like what happened after that?
Well, let's first let's call it the Xbone 180.
The Xbone.
Just to make that official, let's put that in stone. Secondly, though, the way that I see it is, if Microsoft wanted us to be excited about this style of digital distribution, this style of play, this style of the way that they wanted to put this out, they should have done a better job of explaining it to us, the consumer, on the front end. That's where they messed up.
There's a message, yeah.
The simple reason is that, as a gamer, I am informed about the games that I play. I'm informed about the tech. I'm informed about everything that we do. Why else would we be with ultramegadeathray.com? It's very simple. We try to stay up on these. And I know, Dave, that both you and I both, all you had to do was explain it well enough to me to justify. Not if you told me all of the advantages, if you told me everything to be excited about, that's one thing. But when, the rumor mill leading up to it has been leaking out, well, it's not going to do this, and it's not going to do this, and it's not going to do this. Well, it set up these expectations. And then during E3, as we all know, they didn't really explain anything. It's very wild concepts that are great in theory, but we haven't actually seen how it would benefit us, the gamer.
Not to mention, they exclude a lot of people from actually enjoying it. The system itself. You have to be online to play.
Not anymore. That's one of the things they changed.
But it's just one of the things like why.
And that one was a necessity. There's no way you could get around that.
Yeah. So like avoid piracy and all that. Yeah.
Of course. You just have to. That's just one way.
But it's just like having them change it. Just like that. It's just like. I think that's kind of a way that you make people lose faith in your company, because it's like, we set the standard, wait, we're going to change, okay, so you're just going to change just because, PlayStation's doing it a different way than you, that's, if you're going to do it one way, be one way, don't.
Yeah, if you really wanted it to succeed, stick to your guns.
Yeah, like that's
it would work out in the end. Granted, you wouldn't win the initial hardware race, but it's not about who jumps off the line first.
Yeah,
it's the bottom line dollar sale at the end of the day.
It makes me lose confidence in owning a system where the people who make it change their mind really quickly. I know. PlayStation's been doing the same stuff for years, and that's the reason why I like this.
Well, and they got to capitalize off of Microsoft screw up. That's just the way that it is. All they had to do was do exactly what they were doing.
Yeah.
That's not really, it's not a bad business strategy because you're playing to your consumer. You played to what the consumer wanted.
Yeah.
Microsoft ignored that at first, which, again, is fine if that's what you want to do. However, if it's going to be better, then you have to be able to explain it. If you cannot explain it, then it does not matter.
Definitely.
Just like the message just wasn't there. Like they didn't make it clear. And when there were like, mountains of rumors like piling on top of that, people took that as the fact, even though it was still technically like a gray area, but people took it as fact because Microsoft wasn't directly addressing it.
Well,
that's ultimately like what came down to them. It's like, all right, you know what, we have to like stop this because like the pre-orders are getting out of control with the PlayStation 4 just completely eclipsing the Xbox One.
And how many times have we heard now when we're reading these rumors and whatnot, because I know that I read them, you read them, Dave, Quan reads them when he can. With an Xbox insider working on the inside, releasing information, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, they're gonna do this, you know, like, we've had it before the system came out that it ended up being true with the DRM and that kind of thing, and that's great. And then we had it right before this next announcement, and it ended up being true, and that's great. But does Sony didn't release a thing until it was time. There was nobody talking on Sony's end saying that they were going to do it one way or the other. There was really no rumor. I mean, you were hoping they were going to. There was a giant Twitter campaign. There were 1,000 other things that were going on. But we didn't hear from these Sony insiders that are telling us this stuff.
Unless it was about a video game, by the way. Yeah, most of the things that got leaked were about games.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's neither here nor there. You know, we're talking about major hardware.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
You know, but we've heard from 2 or 3 Xbox insiders now about this. I mean, what is Microsoft trying to pull? Are they just trying to leak out information under the table just to see how people would take it?
I think they're almost acting like more on a reactionary kind of basis, like especially after Microsoft like revealed like these things about the Xbox One that people went totally butthurt over, and for good reason too. And they're like, oh, I guess people didn't like that, and like it's still kind of like up in the air whether or not they were originally going to have like a similar system, like where it's going to be very DRM riddled. And like they just like just changed it, like the message around. But by the time E3 came about, and they did a great job just pouncing on that on that opportunity. So I don't know. I mean, like it's a lot of like backdoor stuff that like people aren't 100% clear on. But right. What we do know is that Sony took advantage of a great opportunity in order to spring ahead in sales, which brings us to our next topic. As far as there are like a lot of media outlets that are claiming that ever since the the Xbox One announcement of there being like no DRM and all that, that the Xbox One pre-order sales all of a sudden skyrocketed. Even though I think like last figure I heard before the policy announcement was that the PlayStation 4 was beating the Xbox One like 8-1 or something like that, something close to that.
I'll say, because the last time we talked, it was 4-1.
Yeah, exactly, and it just kept mounting because more and more people were finding out about how shitty the Xbox One was. And and now like with and now people like there's some like people like reporting that like the Xbox One all of a sudden skyrocketed past like the PlayStation 4. Kind of a half truth, really, if you think about it, because like it's technically number one right now. Like if you look at Amazon sales, I'm taking a look at Amazon. The Xbox One right now is number one in the video games category, and but below it is like all these PlayStation 4 bundles. So like if you still add up all those bundles, it's still way ahead of the Xbox One. But like now the Xbox One actually now has a fighting chance. So what are your thoughts on like as far as like these like media outlets, as far as like just making it sound like the Xbox One has like this fighting chance? Do you think it's biased or?
It's definitely biased, and we have to understand that I work at GameStop before. I understand that pre-orders do not actually mean sales. Just because you pre-order something does not mean that you're going to come in and buy it.
Right.
Some people come in and make the pre-order just to be able to sell it on eBay later. Some people come in and make the pre-order just because their kid was there and they wanted to make them happy, and they come back and cancel it later.
Right.
How many of these people are actually going to pick up the system? And that's for either system. That's the thing. The numbers are, let's say, 20% attrition rate. Okay, even at that. You're not, like I said, the last time we talked, the PlayStation 4 was beating Xbox One 4-1. Now if it's 8-1, even with this announcement, I don't see those people who have already signed on to the PlayStation 4, or at least the idea of the PlayStation 4, immediately changing course because of Microsoft policy now. I just don't see it. It's possible, I guess, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I mean, it almost seems like people are almost like pre-ordering too for like more of like what they believe of the Xbox One, more of what they believe of the PlayStation 4. Like people who are pre-ordering the PlayStation 4, like they're almost kind of like I remember I actually watched like a video of Adam Sessler actually talking about how people are actually pre-ordering the story, like the idea of like what it is that they're like believing, rather than like, oh well, this system has this, and this, and I'm going to buy it because of that. It's more of like, well, Xbox is like this big evil like thing that wants to like, limit me as far as like, me being a gamer and all this stuff. And so they go ahead and pre-order like the competition in that sense. So do you believe like people, like more and more people are like pre-ordering because of that? Because just looking at the pre-order sales seems to kind of tell the truth on that.
I believe it. I don't see why not. That's the thing. And I don't usually agree with Adam Sessler, but in this one, I think that, that's just a logical leap. It was a hell of a marketing campaign. It was a hell of a marketing campaign. All you had to do was nothing. You didn't have to do anything.
Not really, yeah.
That right, you can't beat it. When your competition is literally digging their own grave, all you have to do is not wreck the ship at that point.
Right.
You couldn't have beat it,
Yeah, and it's funny because it's like, you have to think about a lot of the diehard, Microsoft fans, people who get stuff every year. And needless to say, some of them probably their faith is a little shaken with the system, but yeah. I'm sure that they're still going to get it just because, they've been invested in Microsoft for so long. And that's like me. I know that I'm going to have something Sony related just because I love all of their products,
Right. Infamous and all that stuff, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, dude, like half of the games I've ever liked on any system were on PlayStation. So it's kind of like I'm totally invested into whatever they're going to put out for their system, even if it's a game that I don't want to play.
Yeah. I know like with like a lot of like the Xbox fanboys, if you will, like Halo is kind of like the big selling point for them to get an Xbox One. Like no matter what kind of like restrictions or policies or whatever the system is all about, they'll want to pick up the Xbox One just because they want to play Halo with along with their buddies. So
if you have that kind of blind faith, good for you. I tend to go where the data goes.
and it's just like that's you have to think about it too, because that's almost like an entirely different like demographic of people that you're selling to, because there's some people that are really invested into the games.
Yeah. But the same argument can be made for Nintendo.
Yeah.
Or
exactly.
Or whoever, that kind of way.
It's ultimately the games and the IPs that are associated with that system. Yeah.
Right. That ends up carrying it past the launch. Mm-hmm. No doubt.
Yeah.
No,
that's something we can definitely all agree on.
Yeah. All right, so so going into like the next story here, there was a talk with Phil Fish, the creator of Fez, the critically acclaimed indie title, and like there was like a reveal for Fez 2, and after that reveal, he was asked by someone, I forget exactly, but he was asked during an interview where as far as like which platforms Fez 2 was going to come out on, and his flat out first response was, not Xbox. And like he just kind of goes on a bit of a tirade as far as like his relationship with Microsoft and like just how how poisonous it was, like especially with when Fez needed like an update on Xbox Live, and Microsoft was forcing him to to pay like some outrageous like fee in order for him to apply that update on Xbox Live. So like we know for sure then that like at least as far as like Phil Fish is concerned, and I would tend to believe him just because how eccentric he can be. As far as
like, a word. What's that? That's a word.
That's a word. Yeah. Word of the day. And like it seems to me that he's all aboard like with like the PlayStation 4, which makes sense because Sony is really pushing hard for like the indie developers to come on board like their console. What are your thoughts as far as like what Phil Fish said on that?
Well, we already know that there are a significant number of indie developers signed on to the PlayStation 4. We have the team that made Bastion making what was it again? I know you know. Transistor. That's the one. And it looks phenomenal. It would only make sense that since Sony is catering so heavily, now granted this hasn't happened yet, so we're still in speculation mode.
Right.
That kind of thing. We have to say that right off the bat. We're assuming that because they have all these indie developers signed on, they're going to be very nice to them and take care of them and,
mm-hmm.
Be the big brother, that kind of thing. That would be wonderful. Not Big Brother 1984, Big Brother, like, protect you, indie developers sort of thing. But, we already know they're catering directly to them. So, I'm not surprised at all that Fez 2 would be going to PlayStation.
Yeah.
Not at all. Not surprised.
Quan?
And I mean, just having an arena where people that don't normally get a chance to develop games, it's nice, it's refreshing to know that people with actual creative ideas get a chance to really shine. Because, you know, you play a lot of the major titles and you have a lot of hype build up with them, and, you know, the game could not come out the way you want it to, but at least with this, you have a completely different aspect of playing games, because a lot of indie developers are really creative people. You know,
You see, I thoroughly enjoy it. One of my favorite indie games still today is Minecraft. I can't even. I can't talk about it. I have a problem.
If we can still call it indie anyway, because like it's so like widespread at this point. But like it started off as being indie, certainly.
When I signed on for it in 2010, 2011, whenever, you know, it was still indie at that time. It was still an alpha when I started playing it.
Yeah.
You know, it was one of those things, like, it was just so, I've never played anything like this before. You know, like, you can sink so many, I can't even tell you how many hours I probably sunk into it. But, you know, it's one of those things. And that came out of an indie title.
Yeah, and that's pretty much what I'm trying to say. It's just like a lot of your greatest, like, hits are the result of an independent game maker. You know, like somebody who had an idea, a really good idea, and went with it, and people liked it. And, like, why wouldn't you give these people a chance? You know, like, that's perfect. That only means that it's going to help you and them. Kudos to PlayStation for at least allowing that to happen. You know?
Exactly, yeah. And like, I don't want to like, you know, keep bashing to keep bashing Microsoft like over this, but like, you know, just the fact that like they're still going with this notion that indie developers still can't self-publish their work and everything. Like that's just showing like how much of a focus that they are putting towards that group, you know, and like I feel like Sony is going to win out in the end in that sense, because at least they have more of that diversity of games rather than just sports and shooters, like just all.
Well, and that's the thing, like, and this references what we were talking about earlier. This is along the same point. You know, Microsoft may change one or two of these policies, but all of the problems that were there are still there.
Yeah.
You know, in some form or another. You know, so. I mean, running a PlayStation is the only thing you can do at this point, you know, if you want to publish on a console.
Yeah, because it's going to take Microsoft a long time to kind of make up for this loss. You know, like, they're going to have to change a lot of stuff to make it make sense now. Because if they kept going, if they did it the way they were going to do it in the first place, it's like they wouldn't have to change anything. And, you know, being able
possibly build on that message.
Yeah, and that's just like, now it's like, okay, you just set yourself back a lot more, so it's going to take you a lot longer.
Yeah, you keep stumbling.
Yeah.
You know?
So it's just like, if you're going to run with something...
You just keep stumbling.
If you're going to run with something where, like, half of, you know, the people involved think it's a terrible idea, at least you know there's a demographic you still appeal to. You know, so run with that, you know, and then build on that. But that's...
It's neither here nor there.
Yeah, I mean, they wanted to compete with PlayStation.
It's a systemic issue.
And PlayStation had a good idea, you know, and they ran with it. And so it's like, well... You know, why change your stripes? You know,
do what you got to do.
Do what you got to do. You know, if you're going to sell a system like this, I won't buy it just because it doesn't appeal to my gaming needs.
Right.
But somebody's going to, because they're going to like the system. So, you know, it's just like I said about the Wii U. You know, it's going to appeal to somebody, but, you know, probably not the masses.
Right.
At least right now, anyways.